when Star Trek Reddit took a stand for Vaxx. Today on Trekland Tuesdays Live with Dr. Trek, that's me, Larry Nemecek, coming to you right here from the heart of Trekland through Portal 47, as it were. Hey, we're bringing you some clarity, sanity, and the big picture in everything Star Trek. I'm happy to be here along with everybody on the Patreon, our TTLers and our live wires. And thank you for being here. Guess what? Today is episode number... Is this too obscure? Anybody? Okay. It's episode number 222. That's the theme song from a dramedy sitcom called Room 222 that was a very classic. It's very relevant in the day when the buzzword for TV was being relevant after being clueless and rural all through the 60s. And now they were with it. Episode 222 today, and we're talking about something that I'm going to go in the weeds a little bit about as a stranger, but it deserves to be shared with a broader audience. When Star Trek Reddit took a stand for Vaxx. And basically, what Mr. Spock and Data and everybody else in Star Trek are mostly all about. If you are new to Tuesdays Live, and maybe some of you caught the Reddit whiff and you've come over from some of the Star Trek Reddits, welcome. If you're new, I'll see you. Years ago, as the socials, as the interwebs took over, I remember as things were trying to find their way, you know, some apps came and went, and some of them, to our chagrin, stuck. But I remember some of the more diary-oriented apps I did not really get into. Channels, what do you want to say, platforms. Tumblr was one, and it's still around, and Reddit was one. I just remember it was a late-night comedian kind of thing to make fun of the bloggers, posters on some of those channels that were more about actually writing things than they were about flashy anything or quickie or imagey or whatever. Sharing so much. They were more in the thread style of old school, forums. That said, in the last couple of years, I've realized that Reddit, or at least Star Trek Reddit, was a great source of a lot of my homies. They didn't know that, but I could see that there was a lot of serious, it was not basement dwelling Cheetos licking fingers. If that's an unfair stereotype, just as bad as the old acne faced Trekkie boy, teenage boy, that was also inaccurate in many ways, especially as a broad brush, then I'm sorry, but that's what I was kind of go by. Or if they were a little wacky or off the top or radical or whatever. I have come to find out that most all of Star Trek Reddit is pretty with it. They're pretty with it about what they should. There's a lot of canonistas. I say that lovingly. I mean, what I think of as a canonista, which is someone who gets it, that as much as Star Trek is about aspirational, futurism, diverse, respectful, good storytelling, and future geek-outness, it's that way because its universe is held together. And if it hadn't, it would either have fizzled out a long time ago or spun off like Darth Vader's TIE fighter at the end of the original Star Wars. And yes, I say the original Star Wars, not Chapter 4, because I was there. That's a little Lewis Black for you. Oh, excuse me. There's a little Lewis Black for you. I've realized the last year or two, and I should move over there. And as soon as I get all the other 47 things off my to-do list, I'd like to be more present on Reddit and converse, interact. Because for one thing, my Fistful of Data column, old school, that I do in the official magazine, which is about to be relaunched, by the way, as Star Trek Explorer. So Dead Tree Media lives if it's relevant enough. Big new reboot. It looks gorgeous. I can't wait. Some things are all new, a new approach, a new tone, but a lot of the best of the old is still there, including, yes, Fistful of Data, my column, been there since the late 90s. But I think Reddit's Star Trek boards, or excuse me, Star Trek subs as subreddit, I think they're very with it. They're very conscientious. They're very passionate and serious and not too off the hook. Okay. Not too wacky doodle, very realistic. And I would say on the head in the sand to the woke spectrum, they're fairly with it. That's why Jay, or Justin, one of the subred mods, and I'm venturing in here the weeds a little bit, but hey, we all need to get out of our comfort zones at times, right? That's why I was really intrigued by apparently a debate that's going on Reddit, a little controversy, and to the extent that Reddit is part of the mainstream of social, like Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, you name it, They're not quite as big, but some of the folks there were hoping this would get bigger. It's really reflecting a lot of what's going on in our social discourse anyway, the division that we have in the country. And increasingly, as we've seen with the vaccinations, the whole response to coronavirus and COVID-19 with shutdowns and mask wearing and even the vaccinations, the misinformation. I mean, we barely got out of the 2020 election and bang, we're into a pandemic. And it's the same kind of things and people and platforms apply. And sometimes there are people who aren't anti so much as they are sitting back and thinking that all this debate is a good thing. And that's what's going on Reddit. Apparently, there's some disinformation sites that more and more people came up with. I was kind of caught up on this, and it's just happened in the last 2 or 3 days. So if you're on Reddit, I'd love to hear what you think about this. And if you're not on Reddit, I promise I'll try not to put you to sleep. Let's not snooze along here, because if you snooze, you lose news. Because it's a real microcosm. It's a real reflection of what's going on in the country and the culture, and not just in the States, but globally to some extent. Basically, what happened was that many of the subreddits were protesting on the disinformation platforms. Not because Reddit was backing them, but because Reddit apparently has a very libertarian, hey, let's have a discussion. We're not shutting down anybody. Go out there in the arena of public opinion and fight for your ideas. Well, we've seen where that's gone in the last 2 or 3 years with the bigger sites that have been more in the news. And the magnetism, the algorithms of social media are so weaponized. You can't talk about it in terms of, hey, the guys sit at the bar yakking about what's going on. You're talking about affecting, whether it's teenagers and body image and depression and mental health issues in younger people because they're on phones, all the way up to the insurrection at the Capitol. And you know what? I think a lot of them were just boneheads, and I'm sorry, and that's probably not a very PC term to use. A lot of people are easily misled, but there was a lot going on there, and it's all going to come out, hopefully. My point is, that's the power of social media, and one cannot just sit back and say, oh, well, we're just the paper. We're not the ink. We're just the paper. That's not it. And that's what's been going on. Apparently, this was all about a site called No New Normal. It's just a misinformation site. And I don't know if they're anti or not. I didn't go there, but they're in protest of that and lots of other sites. Another site called Vaxx Happened, or another subreddit on Reddit, stood up in a site that's supposedly notoriously open and free-minded about everybody publish, it's free speech, everybody go for it. A subreddit called Vaxx Happened stood up and said, this goes over the line. This is beyond the pale. And several others joined in that letter. And then the Reddit ownership came back and said, we hear you, we understand, but we're not going to dump in free speech. Then there was a little bit more pushback. And then this site, No New Normal, yes, let's stagnate. Let's stick our heads. I love it. Who would say no new normal? That's just so anti. Every day is a new day. Change is the essential nature of the universe, said a very famous twice dead Vulcan. But no, this is the debate going on there in their platform in Reddit, just the way it is going on here in society at large. So what happened was, as the initial protest movement, as the, we're in the intravectin, whatever it is, the horse shit. The horse dewormer, the animal veterinary dewormer has taken, people are filling up hospital beds overdosing on this animal veterinary, way overdosed for human level drug, because they're just going off and doing it. It's the chloroquine. It's the whatever of 2021. Monophenophyllostereochloroquine. It's that of 2021 if you're not keeping up in the news. At least here in the States, it's very sad. There might be some use for it somehow, but not taking horse pills. I know there's people fighting back on that, but we've lost the ability to do context. I'm not talking about subtle where it's versus I'm talking about basic math and science and quantity. And yeah, the things that we thought we loved, Spock and Data, and go down the line. B'Elanna and Kim, go down the line to everybody. Yes, Ensign Tilly, it's the power of math, people, and apparently some people are ignoring it. So that was what this debate was about. As the call faltered, fearing that there would be retribution within the platform rules, Some of the Star Trek Reddits is the point here today. Some of the Star Trek subs jumped up and said, no, we should not drop this. And their way of protesting was to go dark, go private, where they were shut down to the public. They were open to their own members still. The statement here on all of Reddit Star Trek. Star Trek is Reddit Star Trek, the subreddit, is private until the Reddit administration removes no new normal, removes, not sanctions or whatever, which is what eventually happened. And other vaccine information subreddits from Reddit. We cannot remain open and also keep our consciences clear. We encourage users of all subreddits to petition your moderators to do the same. I've lost track of where this got to. Initially, over 1,000 subreddits on Reddit. I don't know what the percentage of that is, but that's a sizable number. Dozens more have gone private to protest this, which shuts down the site to outsiders. It's being reported in the tech press. I don't think this is, with everything else going on in the world, sadly, between Afghanistan and fires and COVID and horse worming pills, I don't think this is busted through except in the tech media. If anybody is on Reddit and has been experiencing this or participating in, I'd love to hear from you, especially if you're somebody that came over to Tuesday's Live just for this. We'd love to have you come back all the time. Yes, so Reddit kind of came back a little bit on that, and but didn't satisfy the vast majority. They didn't ban no new normal. They didn't take any action against anybody else. So that's basically where it is. They keep pushing back and pushing back. And now the strategy just is to do what I'm doing. So I know Trek Movie has done a story. There's been another couple. I think Trek News did a story. Will Wheaton weighed in on this, being as tech geek connected as he is, knew that a lot of his audience would care about that, would want to know about that. So again, I don't know that this has busted over into the mainstream yet, but I just think it's fascinating. It's a group that I was hopefully trying to start in and kind of start to take a vibe, take a temperature of the channel and see what was going up. I occasionally find pop-ups and references to me that get me back into it. And again, I was really looking forward to checking in, maybe adding to the conversation there as somebody who was an eyewitness to some of this or knew where some of the bones were buried when people come up with random questions. Kind of an ongoing version of my column in the Dead Tree Media. It really goes back to this war on disinformation, this war on just rationality. It really reminded me, though, here is the Star Trek group taking a stand when the first wave faltered. The Star Trek subreddit jumped in to kind of lead the second wave or lead the resurgence or bolstered the first wave and said, no, let's not give up on this. Let's push back. Let's fight for what we believe in, what we think, and what ostensibly what Star Trek is all about. Some sanity and clarity and the big picture in the universe. So I'm waiting to hear what so they've gone dark, they've gone private. If you're not a member of those subreddits already, you can't get in. So if you're a platform depending on constantly bringing in new eyes and eyeballs to have huge chunks of interest groups, the Pokemon Go community, which has got 3 million members, jumped in. There have been others outside of Trek take this on, and it has grown. Now, whether it hits critical mass and plays out into the mainstream and gets some attention, because the backers that reach out to me, the editors and mods that reach to me said, this is the kind of thing, like with Twitter and Facebook, when you see that in mainstream media, the only way there's going to be change is with public pressure. And if Reddit is one of the not big 3 or 4 media platforms out there, then maybe that'll take a little bit longer. But they're sticking to their guns, and and the Star Trek group, again, is doing it in the belief of what Star Trek is all about. And that's why it crossed my radar, and that's why I wanted to share today. It really was mindful also. Again, a throwback to STLV that just happened. There's conventions coming on down the line here in the future. People are getting more and more unsure about just where the Delta wave is, the pushback is. We're talking about booster shots. We're talking about maybe by the end of the year being able to vaccinate kids. My 5-year-old is pissed that she can't get her shot because she's tired of all this unease. And she had good, geeky, rational parents. She still does. If we could just, as far as the numbers don't care. The host bodies for a virus don't care whether you're 5 or 50 or 500. You're just a body. And if we could get a chunk of those kids, the kids are what gave me pause about going to Vegas. They're what led my better half to not go to Vegas after she'd been planning to. A lot of people either have medically insecure elderly or medically insecure of any age that cannot take a virus, or the kids. If we didn't have those factions that would mostly love to get a shot, we could probably beat that 80% that we need to get to herd immunity. So here we are, and we're just dealing with lots of layers. Again, we're not going to broad brush this thing in for the 47 millionth time, but among the needle averse, among the really the questioning people, it's a pandemic. The people that we wonder, they never question the polio, mumps, measles, rubella, all the shots that their kids take every year for school, that schools require, or that foreign governments or airlines require to travel. Why is it such a big deal here? And after billions, have we got to the billion point? Billions have had one of the major approved vaccines. Not to rehash all of that, I'm here to talk about this debate going on within Reddit to amplify. We're going to boost the signal a little. Hopefully they stick to their guns. Hopefully it's not just within Reddit they're trying to break out and get some attention. So here we are, Tuesdays Live. I'm doing my part because this is such a microcosm of not the end of debate, but just rationality. I'm all for having a 2-lane highway or a 4-lane highway where we have lots of debate, lots of points of view. And that's kind of what the Reddit owners are talking about. I'm sorry, as we've seen with quote unquote politics lately. Yeah, Steve Huffman is the head honcho of Redditor. I'm talking about, we're not on the highway anymore. A lot of people are still on the highway or even the 2-lane road. I'm talking about the people that are over in the ditch. I'm talking about the people that are plowing around over there in the cow pasture. And everybody else is on the road going, what the hell are you doing over there? And how are you going to get anywhere? You're going to bog down in the mud and we'll be on down the road. Sorry. But of course, those are the folks that, I don't know, they may be chewing up the shoulder of the road as they get over there. We're talking beyond normal discourse and debate. And we're talking about off in left field or off in left pasture, off in the lower 40. So good on Reddit. I may get closer to Reddit faster than I thought after all this is going over, because I think the Star Trek community here on Reddit has shown, the Trek subs have shown that they're just as true to their calling as any other faction of Star Trek is wherever it's inhabiting, for the most part. So good on you guys. It's kind of a risk because I guess they can be sanctioned for going dark, going private. So we'll see where this leads. We'll see if this story breaks out, has any oxygen in the room in a crowded, sadly, headline-saturated time right now, if this breaks out. I just thought it was so reflective of society in general, much less what we're going through in Star Trek right now, as we're sitting here watching the conventions go. You know, Las Vegas, Creation had an allowance for you had to be vaccinated or you had to come in with a negative test. And if you walked in the door with it, within 2 or 3 days, you had to test again. Now, that still let things slip through. Yes, even vaccinated people in the Delta variant surging, people have had breakthrough infections. It's said they may not be sick very, very much. They may not have a lot of symptoms, some debilitating, but in the spectrum of a tiny fraction here, an even tinier fraction is being afflicted. And occasionally, people are intubated and died just as if they'd not had a vaccine at all. The point of the vaccine was to not let you die, not let you have adverse symptoms, but you could still be a carrier back to your kids, back to the medically unable to take a vaccine and the elderly that could not take it for whatever reason. And then we've got the rest of the world looking at this faction of America going, what, are you crazy? We are still waiting on our first dose. It will be months. You know, in Africa and South Asia and places, the poorer parts of the world, which is another aggravating, angrifying aspect of this whole thing. But what's happening in Trek world is that some of the conventions coming up are saying we're not doing testing. The whole testing, show us a negative test, even if we're providing it right here on site in 20 minutes, which was a wonderful service. And hats off to Creation again for mandating all of that, which is what Clark County there at Las Vegas was mandating anyway, but they were actually enforcing it and supporting it by giving tests to people walking in the front gate, a test that was available within minutes, if not a half hour or so. Coming up, I'm hearing from more and more events that are not doing. LA Comic-Con, which is coming up at the end of the year, is vaccinations only. No testing at the door. No get in with a negative from whenever you took your test last. Apparently, vaccination cards that are forged, fake vaccination cards, are still a thing. That's still a thing. So that's throwing askew in this effort anyway. So it's bad enough just cutting it back to vaccinated people, and you hope that no one is cheating here. In the Trek realm, the vast majority of people want that, they welcome that, and they get it. They get it. Star Trek is not all about shipping. It's also about receiving. I know. Receiving the facts of the matter and rationality and getting out there. So some of the upcoming events as we creep back into what looks normal, or the new normal. Sorry, there is a new normal. There'd better be a new normal. The last old normal wasn't always the best. Whether it was healthcare delivery or it was redlining where people of color could live, there's a lot of old normal that has been exposed, had the Band-Aid ripped off. But in this little arena right here, more and more events, as we're seeing with the sports world. And even that, with its problematic line there, they're going to vaccinations only. And I know, guys and gals and peeps, it's one more time when COVID takes over the topic here on Tuesdays Live. But it's what we're living with. And it's what's frustrating as more and more people get frustrated that a minority, it's the tyranny of the minority, once again, holding back our getting to herd immunity here, even with the vaccine. And a lot of people working in social arenas, racial justice and social arenas, nationally as well as globally, the insanity, the indignity, the crime of not even having this for everybody yet, and subjugating people in parts of the world to Delta waves before they've even had a chance to get the vaccine to begin with, much less countries where it's free as well as the testing is free. Okay, soapbox over. Hang in there, Star Trek subs on Reddit. Hang in there with you and all your allies. Reddit can be all about free speech and an open discussion. But there's a difference between responsible open discussion and wacky-doo off in the South 40. Stay on the highway of discourse here. Remember when the information superhighway? Nobody said it being in the information super pasture ditch. Bar ditch, you know what that is? People get stuck in the ditch. The road is where you move. Even when you've got cannon guardrails on your road, they're there to keep you not just into cannon, but maybe out of the ditch as well. Okay, I can't wait to see what this has conjured up in the chat. So, because people who are watching me later on YouTube will be going away. And before you get away, I may post some of these links later if you're interested in this. There was a story on the Pokemon Kotaku.com, and dailydot.com had stories on this too if you want to go searching. The Reddit and misinformation going private, going dark campaign. But Star Trek folks led the pushback after the first wave faltered. And good on you guys and gals and peeps. That's what Star Trek is all about. That's why we're aboard her. Okay. I do want to thank, as I said, hey, all of our Patreons who are helping out and the TTO Club. That's Blaze K, Robin Wilson, Lawrence Todd, and Marie Siegel, Keith Rombach, Justin Porteous, Nathaniel Robinson, and J.R. Poole. And hey, in our live wires, Rusty Harrell, Halberd Gunn Johnson, Jalen Bullock, Robert McLean, Alan Hohensi, and Casey Shafsky. Really want to thank those folks. I do have a simple Patreon, patreon.com/Trekland Live. It's $5 and $10 a month. It's just a simple thing to help me, support me with, as we've come so far the last year with live streaming, with the quality and the tech, and hopefully we'll be making a few more tweaks. I don't know. Should I give up the sticky cards from the early days of Facebook Live? Is that a Tuesdays Live thing? Should we have a poll up on Trekland on my Facebook page about should I try to go to fancy graphics and a theme and all of that? Or no, not the Room 222 theme, or keep the cards? I don't know. We'll have to see. But if you're interested in supporting and being part of this, patreon.com/Trekland Live is a great entry play to play. $5 for a shout out, $10 for a shout out, and the way overdue interviews that I still have to send people. Early interviews from the early years of Backstagers, early year or two of Portal 47. Elsewhere, kiddos, around the Trekland channels, Trek Files is up again as usual. Today it's Tuesday. And we're back with Susan Sackett, Gene Roddenberry's longtime executive assistant, where the specific is Susan's notes about an early Star Trek 4 draft You can read that and hear us talk about those early days of Gene out in the woods himself a little bit with the movies and fighting for his perch right before The Next Generation became a thing. And that soaked up all the time and interest. That's the Trek Files. Everywhere on Facebook at facebook.com/the Trek Files. That's where the documents are. You can get it wherever fine podcasts are not sold. And then Saturday, we will be back after Ollie's event disruption last week. Live Support Live, Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern. That's 6 o'clock UK time, 7 Central European. We boldly go through uncertain times, do Dr. Trek and Dr. Ali, and one of us is even a real doctor. Speaking of life support, another shout out to the Friends of Michael Braveheart GoFundMe. 90% of his backers, his donors, have been Star Trek fans because Michael, if you didn't know, had played Ensign/Nurse Martinez alongside Dr. Crusher for almost all the run of Next Gen and First Contact in Generations. In fact, he even came on board with Dr. Pulaski. He's not been able to teach in the pandemic, solo teacher, acting teacher, and he's asking for help. He's about halfway through to his 5,000 goal. It's very modest. So a shout out there over on GoFundMe. I just want to thank everybody for being here. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please like and subscribe on YouTube, by the way, and of course follow on Facebook. But Larry Nemecek's Trekland, that's where I am there, and Instagram. And on Twitter, it's at Larry Nemecek. But otherwise, portal47.net. Your mini-con all year long. Why have the con blues when you have community and guests and insight and Dr. Trek hopefully opening your eyes? Are you opening mine to what's going on out there? Yeah. Everybody, please stay healthy. Do all the things. Nobody said it was going to be easy. It's a pandemic. We have special words for special events, sadly. And while you're doing that, stay woke. Check the sources of everything. Check the background of the people you get engaged with if you're going to suck down 10 or 15 minutes of your precious time only to be exhausted by somebody who will not relent. Don't be fooled. Check for bots. Check for trolls. Check for facts. Check for re-examining your history. Yeah. Trek well, everybody.